Good morning. My name is Jessica Wirges. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm in my early 30s. I have long brown hair that I've released from its usual updo. Please apologize for my cat. Glasses, a gold septum piercing, and these glitter pink heart lollipop earrings that I'm wearing in honor of today's message. I also found them and I love them. I'm wearing them to school on Valentine's Day. I'm currently wearing a dark blue long sleeve shirt that has black lace running down the sides of the sleeves. For today's message, I will be reading Go to Bed Angry by Reverend Emilie Boggis, who originally presented it to the Summit Beacon UU congregation in Summit, New Jersey, July of 2022, as part of a month-long series called Loving the Hell Out of the World. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. When singing this song, the Unitarians tend to overlook the grace and the sweetness in that opening line and solely focus on the wretch. We really don't like it. After all, the Unitarians long believed that human beings were too good to be damned. From the earliest days, they fought against Christianity's narrative that we were inherently depraved, inherently sinful, or inherently wretched. We might do wretched things, but we are not inherently wretched. Yet, if we are to love the hell out of this world, as our universalist theology calls us to do, what do we do when we are wretched to one another? After all, we have made promises to one another that when we hurt one another, we will try to make amends. We commit to changing ourselves and growing. We intend to work toward healing and reparations. How on earth and heaven do we get there? Where is the sweet sound of that amazing grace? One of the first bits of relationship advice I received was the maxim, don't go to bed angry. I don't even know who gave me the advice. I felt like it was in the other. If you're fighting with a sibling, a roommate, a partner, the best thing you can do is resolve the conflict before you lay your head on the pillow. That has never, and I mean never, worked for me. I have learned that I am not very sensible. In fact, I am more vulnerable, more emotional, and just plain tired. Following don't go to bed angry led to very bad decisions. As Phyllis Diller once said, don't go to bed angry, stay up and fight. This week, I asked Facebook what relationship advice that they had received that didn't work out for them. I have to say the patriarchy is alive and well in the advice we've received. Here's some of that advice we've received. Trust the process. Yes, but it really depends on the process and who is leading it. You're a lot, meaning make yourself and your needs smaller to accommodate the other person. The secret to a happy relationship is compromise, aka everyone gives up something rather than finding another way. Time heals wounds. Well, time can sometimes add to those wounds, like trauma and stuff. Talk everything out, said the extrovert to the introvert. Family first. Well, that only works if you've got a healthy family. It's okay to leave people when they are toxic, related or not. Stay married, period. It doesn't matter if you are both completely miserable. If it was meant to be, it will be. God has a plan. Things work out the way they're supposed to. Meaning, I don't want to take responsibility for my actions, and I certainly don't want to hold someone accountable. When your partner stops complaining, you'd better watch out. They've checked out of the relationship. When I read this one to my kids, hey, Mom, you're winning. And my all-time favorite bit of advice, go camping as a family. While I have never suggested camping as relationship advice, I have often counseled people, no matter the type of relationship, to pay attention to the little things. While lying and cheating, stealing, and cruelty pose definitive markers to a relationship's end, not putting the cap back on the toothpaste every day for 5 years can send many relationships over the edge. For Matthew Frey, his marriage ended because he left dishes in the sink instead of putting them in the dishwasher as requested by his spouse. He writes in his book, "This is How Your Marriage Ends." I spent most of my life believing that what ended marriages were behaviors I classify as major marriage crimes. Because I wasn't committing major marriage crimes, when my wife and I were on opposite sides of an issue, I would suggest that we agree to disagree. I believe she was wrong, either that she was fundamentally incorrect in her understanding of the situation, or that she was treating me unfairly. It always seemed as if the punishment didn't fit the crime, as if she were charging me with premeditated murder when my infraction was something closer to driving a little bit over the speed limit with a burned out taillight that I didn't even know was burned out. So Matthew Frey told his partner that she was being silly because it didn't matter to him, it shouldn't matter to her. Interestingly, after recent service on Facing the Truth, several people shared stories about fathers and mothers, siblings and friends, partners and colleagues who would never admit that they had done anything wrong. Full stop. If my behavior hurts you, that's your problem. There's something you're doing wrong. I am not the wretch. The Hebrew Bible, there in Genesis, centers the promises that we make to one another in our relationships. The Christian Bible, in the Gospel of Matthew, gives us the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. However, Matthew Frey might caution you on the golden rule. He writes, "Hundreds, maybe thousands of times, my wife tried to communicate that something was wrong, that something hurt. But that doesn't make sense, I thought. I'm not trying to hurt her, therefore she shouldn't feel hurt." Do unto others does not require us to put ourselves in our partner's shoes. It centers who we are and what we value. Relationships, for better or worse, require us to grow ourselves in relationship to one another, another person, and another person who is often quite different than we are. A section of Matthew Frey's book was published in The Atlantic, but it popped up for me on Facebook amongst my colleagues. There, in the comments, a colleague shared that the article spoke to them as a person of color. The number of times they had shared with white family members, friends, colleagues, how their comments and actions felt like microaggressions. Brief, everyday exchanges that felt like death by 1,000 tiny cuts, sending the message over and over again, you don't belong. Your needs and your feelings don't matter. I am not intending to hurt you. Therefore, you shouldn't feel hurt. AKA, I'm discounting your feelings because I'm not willing to change my behavior. Why should I change my behavior? I am not a wretch. Where is that sweet sound of amazing grace? Maybe we can find it in another gospel. Let's try the gospel of Bruno Mars and his love song, "Count on Me." If you ever find yourself stuck in the middle of the sea, I'll sail the world to find you. If you ever find yourself lost in the dark and you can't see, I'll be the light to guide you. We'll find out what we're made of when we are called to help our friends in need. You can count on me like 1, 2, 3. I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you like 4, 3, 2, and you'll be there. Because that's what friends are supposed to do. If you're tossing and you're turning and you just can't fall asleep, I'll sing a song beside you. And if you ever forget how much you really mean to me, every day I will remind you. We'll find out what we're made of when we're called to help our friends in need. You can count on me like 1, 2, 3. I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you like 4, 3, 2, and you'll be there. Because that's what friends are supposed to do. As an aside, we'll get to listen to this song later in today's service. Beloveds, what does it mean to count on one another? Rabbi Lawrence Kushner is a longtime student of the Jewish mystical tradition. He once asked a group of children, "If you believe in God, raise your hand." Almost none of the children raised their hands. He couldn't believe it. How could this be? So, Rabbi Kushner decided to ask a different question. Have you ever felt close to God? Have you ever felt close to something larger than yourself? If so, raise your hand. Hands went up all over the room. In all of our relationships, I wonder if what we're really seeking is that feeling of closeness, a feeling that we belong. Yet, we're all so different. How we experience closeness and belonging is going to vary by person. If we don't know how to help one another feel close to us, we will inevitably feel disconnected. It starts small, but then each time we're unwilling to face the disconnection, it grows wider and wider. For some, don't go to bed angry is wonderful advice. For others, like me, it will never lead me to the closeness that I'm seeking. For some, a dish by the sink goes unnoticed. Hey, at least it made it to the sink. For others, like Matthew Frey's wife, leaving your dish by the sink after being asked to change your behavior is a sign of disrespect. Matthew Frey writes, "It was about consideration, about the pervasive sense that she was married to someone who did not respect or appreciate her. Not taking 4 seconds to put my glass in the dishwasher is more important to me than you are. And if I didn't respect or appreciate her, then I didn't love her in a manner that felt trustworthy. She couldn't count on the adult who would promise to love her forever." That's one of the reasons even the golden rule has shifted its behavior. It's gone platinum. Instead of treat others the way you want to be treated, it now invites all of us to treat others the way they want to be treated. It does not require you to change your personality. It does not force you to roll over and submit to others. However, if you care about someone, if you want to feel close to them, you do have to understand what actions will allow that closeness to exist. The same is true in our faith movement. We care about creating a faith of radical inclusivity. That's why we call ourselves a movement, because we've made promises to one another, that we will be moved. We are willing to shift, to grow, to change for one another. That's what belonging requires. That's what love requires. Again, Matthew Frey says, there's only one reason I will ever stop leaving that glass by the sink. And it's a lesson I learned much too late. Because I love and respect my partner, and it really matters to them. The Gospel of Bruno Mars says, we'll find out what we're made of when we are called to help our friends in need. Our relationships test us. They show us what we're made of. Loving the hell out of the world means that we have to be able to count on one another. Count on one another to risk our own comfort and to change for love. Too often, when we think of love, we think it means simply loving us as we are. But we are not islands. We are human beings living within a web of relationships. And these relationships grow us. If we aren't willing to grow, what are our promises and our covenants even worth? Why bother making them? If we're not growing, we're not really loving one another. Beloveds, the world we dream of requires us to learn how to love. That's a promise we've got to be willing to make. Now, when it comes to Gospels, I have to say that Bruno Mars has a lot of wisdom on love to offer. Your spiritual practice for this week is to listen to as much Bruno Mars as you can. Create your own playlist and share it with others. Count on me? Sure. When I was your man? Absolutely. Leave the door open? Heck, add the whole Silk Sonic album. Uptown Funk? Amen. Every wedding goes platinum when the DJ plays it. That said, every gospel writer has a little bit of wisdom rooted in empire, including Bruno Mars. Every time I hear his song Grenade, I look right at my daughters as he sings the line, I would die for you, baby, but you won't do the same. And then I offer them my own bit of relationship advice. If anyone says that to you, don't walk, run in the other direction. Beloveds, let ours be a movement grounded in a love beyond hell. That's amazing grace. How sweet the sound. Ash.